I'm Ricky Martin, founder of Hyper Recruitment Solutions, and this is the Recruiter Ricky podcast. This podcast is all about unearthing fantastic pearls of wisdom about how people can help themselves to get hired and how people hiring can do it better. Today, I'm welcomed by none other than the editor of the Recruiter magazine, Deedee Doke. Welcome, Deedee.
Thank you, Ricky. It's so good to be here.
Well, we were speaking before we started recording that you and I first met 5 years ago when you kindly welcomed me onto a show that you were doing at the time. Why don't you remind us what that show was?
It was A Drink With, and we had a few luminaries of the recruitment world come in, choose their favorite drink, whether it was peppermint tea, which was yours.
It was.
Or Prosecco, which one of our other guests had. And we'd have a drink together. I'd have my Diet Coke at hand. And we would just chat through anything and everything that came up, recruitment and otherwise.
Well, I remember it was one of the, shortly after I started HRS, it was probably one of the first videos, media, content things I had done. So to do it with you guys was great. But you've just told me that I said peppermint tea and someone said Prosecco. So you've ultimately just told me that I was boring.
No, not at all. In fact, it was great to see someone have such refined tastes, if you will.
I think that's the first time I've been called refined. I'll take it. I think what would be great is for people to understand who you are and what you've done. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself because you are the editor of the Recruiter magazine for the best part of a decade and a half, is my understanding. So do you want to tell us a bit more, Deedee?
Yes. I have had the great privilege of being Recruiter's editor since May 2005.
Wow.
I became associated with Recruiter while I was earning my master's degree. I did some freelance work for Recruiter. And at the same time I finished my master's, the editor's job came open, and I thought, I want that one. And here I am.
Well, and here you are, and here you've been for a long time doing that role.
Yes.
And I think just to set the scene for everyone about the Recruiter magazine, and I guess this is probably good for you to know, I've never shared it, but the Recruiter magazine is the voice of the recruitment magazine that goes out monthly, weekly, remind me?
It goes out monthly.
It goes out monthly, and it is the magazine that I would say it's the longest subscription I've had to anything in my life, more than any streaming, more than any football thing when I was younger. I have probably seen every edition since I've been in recruitment, which would have been since 2006.
Wow.
So if you imagine your journey at the Recruiter started a year before I even joined the industry, and I've been with you the whole way as one of your avid readers, viewers, whatever you like to say it.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you for what you put together. I think what would be good to know is when we think of the Recruiter magazine, I see it as the voice, and I see it as a great source of relevant, recent information. But how would you describe the Recruiter magazine? What has been your vision for the publication?
We are, I would say, an objective publication for and about the recruitment industry. We are the industry's greatest advocate. We love what recruiters do. We believe that for the most part they do it very well. I think UK recruiters are the best in the world.
Yes, we are.
Yes. And we are keen to be there to support recruiters. At the same time, we have a responsibility to call out bad practice when we see it. And so I like to think of us giving the recruitment industry tough love.
Yeah. And if we think about that tough love, I'm trying to do the math in my head now, but 15 years, we're looking at the best part of 180 editions during that period. Is my math roughly right there?
Well, until 2011, we were every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks, okay.
And so there were some more issues in there. But going back to that question, we need to shine a light on great things that are going on in recruitment, the successes, the achievements, and also let people know, how evolutions that are taking place. That's, you mentioned the 15 years. with a magazine like Recruiter, and we also have a daily web news service, we can't stand still. The industry has not stood still. We can't either. And we have to keep evolving with our readers, with the industry, with what is going on in the industry. And we need to be able to reflect the concerns and the aspirations of our industry as they change all the time.
I think what's interesting is think of that change. So when I joined, we were just moving, and it might sound crazy to some people, but it just moved away from the days of faxing a CV to a client to propose a candidate for them to consider. And LinkedIn at the time wasn't even really a thing. That I don't even know if it was even existing, but we didn't use it. So faxes have just come away. The Rolodex have just come away for some salespeople. If you think of where recruitment has changed in 15 years, it is, and the pace it's growing now from both sides of an industry and technology is incredible. I mean, what do you think, considering what you've seen is in 15 years, has been the biggest change in the way recruitment is done?
The easy answer is technology. Technology has changed the how of what people do. However, it really hasn't changed what they do. Yeah. And that's exciting. I think that even with all the technology help in the world, if you have someone who is a great recruiter back then, somebody who could work with people to get a great match for a job, I imagine that they're still great at that today.
I love the fact that you said that, because I preach this all the time, and I'll preach it all over the podcast, but people still deal with people, and we can't forget that the recruitment industry is a people industry.
Yes.
As you said, somebody back in the day who worked with people definitely could work with people today if they are prepared to appreciate the differences, cultural differences, the changes in economics, all of these things. But I think let's look at tech. It is the disruption of the recruitment industry. But I think for every recruiter out there, and for every job seeker who's thinking of either applying to a job with or without a recruitment company, disruption doesn't mean it's going to remove that sector.
No.
I think it means it will complement it. Do you think those companies that don't embrace technology will have difficulties moving forward?
Well, there are degrees of embracing technology. If a company that doesn't go for every shiny new bell and whistle, I don't think they're at risk. I do think, though, that you have to keep up with, a certain foundation of technology to do things. And it may be that the company wants a few bells and whistles, but you don't have to go after every new toy on the block.
Well, let's look at what you guys are as a publication. Okay. I think everyone said that the paper publication would be dead because of the digital world. Reality is places like The Recruiter have embraced the digital world, and you have two outlets.
Yes.
And I am still that consumer that will probably more likely open the magazine and read it over a coffee break or a lunch break than I will flicking through the digital side, because there's so much on the digital world. So if we think of you guys have embraced tech and you've got the audience on both platforms, I guess it's what recruiters need to do. Let's look at the Recruiter magazine. Let's think 15 years, you've had a significant impact on the magazine and how we all look at recruitment. What has been your most, whether there is one, what has been your favourite edition in all of that time?
Oh my gosh.
The $1 million question.
Wow, now that really is a tough one to answer, because I love them all. They're kind of my babies, but for different reasons. If I could highlight a few that have just...
Of course you can, yeah.
An issue that we did this summer is one of my favorites in terms of the wonderful cover art that our designer did for us.
I know exactly the one you're about to share.
Oh, we had a piece in there about, the war for talent, which is a very cliched phrase, but it is a war for talent. And two companies were getting celebrities involved to try to attract people to different events so that the companies could court them, if you will.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that the celebrities involved knew anything about the jobs, not at all. They were just there to grace
an ambassador
the event.
to get people in the door.
Exactly. Beautifully put. And they were SAP and the AA, two very different organizations. But to tell that story, we had to have a really special cover that really told people immediately what this was about.
Yeah.
In my view, and in the views of readers who've gotten in touch with us, it worked. And I'm really proud of that.
It was by far the most striking cover. I mean, clearly you guys had spent time and probably a lot of money coming up with. If you haven't seen this edition, it's the July edition.
Yes, it is.
July 2019 edition of The Recruiter, where we had multiple animated versions of celebrities on the front cover, which included who did it have on it?
Holly Willoughby.
Of course it was Holly. And if you go inside and actually read the cover, you had Ant Middleton in there.
Yes.
Who's one of my personal favourites.
Yes.
And I believe he must have been with AA.
Yes.
They must have signed him up with some synergy and what. For those that don't know Ant Middleton, we've got an SAS man that does SES Who Dares Wins and is all over the media now on how he can help people's mindset push through difficult periods. And the AA perfect synergy. So I thought that was a great cover.
Thank you.
A great content. I was disappointed I didn't have an animated version on there, Deedee, but that will come. Only time will tell.
Absolutely.
Tell me about any other editions you've been proud of.
I was very proud of our Olympic edition back in 2012.
The year I set up HRS. That's how I always remember the Olympics, because it was in London. I moved to London. I set the company up.
Well, it was an Olympic year all round then, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I was very proud of that, what we were able to do with that issue. Every year, I'm very proud of our Hot 100 issues, of the 100 most profitable recruiters, not the ones who are making the most money, but who are the most profitable. And our 11 most influential in-house recruiters.
Yeah. So that's 2. So let's go for, and we've looked at Olympics, let's go for a podium position. Give me one other that'd be in your top 3 recruiter magazines.
Okay. We did a cover profile very early in my tenure of a very entrepreneurial recruiter named Brian Hamill, who, in addition to being very sharp, also happened to be extremely good looking. And because he had a star quality, not only with his good looks, but the way that he had bought up this company and was doing great things with it at the time, we thought we need to give him kind of a movie star look on the cover. And I think that cover actually set the tone for a number of years for Recruiter, because then it was people saying, well, I want to be photographed and be on the cover of Recruiter and be a star. And for a number of years, that was kind of our USP in terms of having these great profiles, doing original photography. And that was great for a long time. Now we're kind of evolving and getting more just at issues. I mean, we do still have profiles, but also, for instance, this month we've got a cover feature on the visa issues that some recruiters are experiencing in getting people to staff their offices in the U.S.
Well, if we think about attracting, I guess, your audience to read the content you're creating to help the recruitment industry, are we always going to be attracted by the photo of somebody that we might not know who they are, but it would tell us who they are? Are we going to be attracted to maybe some of the content that's hitting us hard? IR35 changes in 2020, immigration issues happen as a result of Brexit, dare I use the dreaded B word, which actually isn't a problem, it's an opportunity if we want it to be an opportunity.
Oh, I'm glad to hear you say that.
Too many people moan in this sector and every sector that is an issue, but let's move away from Brexit. My B. Okay, no, I agree. I think you've got 3 really interesting covers there. I think it would be great. I'm going to look up the original ones. I want to see who this handsome Brian chap is and see who gave you that twinkle in your eye, Deedee. But let's have a look at actually recruitment itself, because that illustrates perfectly what you've done in the last 15 years to give recruitment a voice to the industry and help to pave the way for the rest of recruiters. But during your time as an editor, you'd have had to make some serious decisions yourself in hiring within the business, within your team. And I could only imagine in what you do that actually you've got some fantastic creative people, but are they going to actually fit the mold of what you want to create in your vision? So talk to me a little bit about what it's been like to recruit for a publication.
Well, I'll start that off by saying that 3 of my team have been with me a very long time. Our wonderful production editor, Vanessa Townsend, joined us in 2007. Colin Cautel, the most dangerous man in recruitment, he's been called by the Sun, has been with us both freelance and part-time and full-time since about 2006. And Graham Simons, our senior reporter, has been with us on and off since 2008.
And I'll give a big shout out to Graham as well, because Graham is constantly tapping me up for information for the magazine with the tightest of deadlines, zero opportunity to really think, but he gets the job done for you, Deedee. So big shout out to Graham from my side.
I am so proud of him. Well, of all my team. Yeah. With our other members, we've had some guest stars, if you will. We've had people who've been with us maybe for 2 years and then have moved on, sometimes for visa reasons, sometimes because they were able to follow their Northern Star in a different direction. So we've had some great people with us, too. We've had 1 or 2 that weren't a good match.
So I'm not going to ask you to name names because that's unfair of you and them. Whether you like to, I'm going to protect their integrity.
Yes.
What's made them a bad hire? Why haven't they worked out in the firm? What is the issue that it's created for you?
Well, with one of them, it was a rather complex set of issues. I think this person genuinely had the skills, but I think his lifestyle was not compatible with coming to work all the time. And
is that all the time and on time, possibly?
The on-time thing wasn't when he came. He was generally on time, but also I don't think he had access to a laundry.
Okay.
Every time we had a big event like our recruiter awards or shortlist party, he was ill for the next few days.
Okay.
And not great. Again, very skilled guy, but not a lot of common sense.
I think the interesting thing you share, you've got 2 things there, and I talk about one of them a lot, and I will do on the podcast, but you've got skill and will is always that debate. Somebody's got the skills to do the job, but do they have the will to do it? This, I guess, is slightly separate. It's not that they haven't got the will, it's just they've chosen a different path in where their priorities lie. And I think that does apply to everyone in any job, that even though you've got a job, you still need to take the job seriously, and you are still a professional within your company and an ambassador on this occasion for the Recruiter magazine, that you actually want to uphold your standards. So let's think of standards, maybe, if we think of why that person hasn't worked.
That's a real good way of summing it up. There was one more incident, which he used our social media account to the Recruiter magazine account to contact a restaurant and ask for, a drink supplier and ask for free samples, and then we would review it, which we don't do. So
did they get their free samples?
No, they did not.
They didn't. And so they didn't turn up. You didn't try any yourself, just in case they were there. Just checking.
No.
Okay. And I'm going to flip the question, because I don't want it to sound like I'm being negative. What makes a bad hire? But why that is an important thing is, we can talk about great hires, and I'll ask you that question in a moment, and we can all aspire to be a great hire, but it's easy to slip into the trap of some habits that make you a bad hire.
Yes.
That I think sometimes you don't realise until it's too late. And that's why I start with that question. But let's look at a good hire. The people that you've had, and some of them stayed with you a long time, testament to you to keep hold of them and setting the pace, and to them to being great workers. What's made them so good? And when can you tell they're a great hire?
They are all very different individuals, very, very different. With some successful teams, you see some commonalities. I think the only thing that we have in common is that we all love the spirit of Recruiter.
You're all crazy is what we're saying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've hired them all for very different reasons. Let me give you an example. One of my hires, when he came to interview with me, he was very shy, very nervous. And he had good experience outlined on his CV, and I thought, I know this guy has got more to give. He mentioned something about music, and that triggered something. And tell me about your favorite band. And his favorite band is Iron Maiden.
Fantastic.
And he waxed poetic for some time about how Iron Maiden and how he'd been a fan for years and years. And I thought, this guy has passion. He worked a few years at his previous job. And I thought, he gets excited about things and he can commit. And so I had to hire him.
Do you like Iron Maiden, Deedee?
I went to see them a year and a half ago at the O2.
Oh, fantastic.
With some friends. I like them. They're not my favorite band, but I can relate.
I'm not going to ask you your favourite band. I'm going to let that be an enigma, because we know you do go to gigs with Iron Maiden, so I'll let everyone imagine the rest. But I think what you've shared is really important there. That sometimes when people are interviewing, they are nervous and shy, and they might have the best CV, but their demeanour doesn't show that. And I think that's very normal. And I think if people are interviewing, they need to remind themselves that no one's invincible. We all have moments of doubt. And I think I can be confident exterior. There are moments where my self-confidence questions whether things will work. But what you've been able to do as an interviewer is identify something in their profile, i.e. music, and then you've got them to open up. So with that in mind, do you believe that hobbies and interests on a CV, where you might have found that they like music, are really powerful tool for the interviewer and the interviewee to talk about?
I think they can be. I think that the interviewer needs to use the hobby and skill to get back to what you're looking for in the job. Maybe it is that passion, or maybe there's some kind of knowledge that's going to relate back from that to what you need.
Okay.
So I think in and of itself, they can't stand alone, but if you can make that link to the role.
Well, I think it's an art on both sides. I think there's the art of the interviewer using it as a tool to help to identify behaviourals or competencies in someone. And I think it's the element of the job seeker or the candidate to actually think, if I use this smartly, I might be able to provoke a discussion. If you loved Iron Maiden, for example, and it said they loved Iron Maiden, there's an instant link even before the meeting. What hobbies and interests, and I labour this point because I think they're so powerful, what hobbies and interests turn you off? What don't you like to see when they use the generic versions in there?
Wow, that's a tough one, because I'm interested in just about any interest someone has, that there has to be a reason for it. Can I communicate about all those things? Like if someone's built their own house, I might have trouble understanding what questions to ask because I've never done that, but I could still be interested in it overall. I really can't think of a hobby.
What if I ask it differently? Let's just say you don't care what hobbies and interests. Ultimately, it's a talking point. So let's say that they like the cinema. That's on there. That's a very typical one. I love movies. I could tell you my favourite movies and what I've seen recently and what I'm going to see next week. But what if somebody sat in the meeting with you and you said, I see you like the cinema here, talk to me about the movies, and they couldn't tell you anything about the movies. They've used it as a filler of the CV. Okay. How would it make you feel then?
I would feel as though they felt they had to make something up to be interesting.
Yeah.
You know? Another thing, and that's an interesting point you raise about the cinema, and if I said, what kind of films do you like the best? And they mentioned some kinds of films that might be a red flag to me, or I might have to ask them, what do you enjoy about that kind of film? Can you tell me a little bit more?
So if it's a horror film and you're like, I hate horror films, Ricky, why do you put horror films? And I say, because they make me feel alive. They make me feel scared, that I can feel my emotions, and my favourite one is Scream. You're getting an emotional response from someone.
Yeah, and that's great. You know, I can understand, while I might not share the interest, I can appreciate the feelings that it would rouse.
And I think what's powerful there for people to realise is don't just throw things on your CV to fill it. I'm going to use your word. You did say they want to show that they're interesting. I'm going to be really harsh. If they're putting things in there that make them uninteresting, it will make a question mark in the hiring process.
If they don't tell the truth.
Correct, yeah.
That's the thing that makes me go, maybe this person isn't right for us.
So let's look at the CV further. I mean, I've moved this to hobbies and interests. But when you've got a CV in front of you, no matter what role you're hiring, where does your eyes first go? What are you looking for when you quickly scan for 10 seconds over that CV?
I want to know what they have done, what they are doing.
Okay.
I'm looking for, if I'm looking to fill a particular role, have they done some of this before? Is there something, and so that would be the job
the job description.
Right.
How do they illustrate? I've got an answer, but that's irrelevant. I want to hear how you see it. You could look at 10 CVs and they all tell you they've done the same thing for the same tenure for the same firm. Therefore, they're quite vanilla. How would one of those CVs stand out above the other 9?
Okay, what does the CV tell me about their initiative?
Okay.
Seeking more responsibility or managing a project or product on their own.
So would you expect someone to literally write within the description, independently,
Yes. I think a job description can tell you so much, but what have you done within that framework? How have you made that role your own? There are some jobs, and I'm most familiar with media, so I can put it in that context. There are some jobs that people just go through. They fill that job, and when they leave that job, there's still that job. But no matter how junior the role is, what has that person done to make that role their own? What are people going to remember them for when they leave? And they won't have put that in their CV, like, people will remember me for this, but it's what are the elements in there that show what they took pride in?
If they wrote literally what you just said, here's the description, here's 3 bullet points of what I've done, then they had a bullet point underneath it and it actually said, this is what they'll remember me for. Would you like that they've almost painted that out to you and they've given you the differentiator you're looking for? Or do you want to be able to read between the lines there?
Wow, that's a tough question.
I've never seen it on a CV, so I'm just kind of throwing it out there.
I don't know how I would take that.
Maybe
I don't
an element
think
of arrogance, possibly, if they've said that, as direct as that.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
But I think it's more important what they want to be remembered for, and that will show in what they've done for themselves,
Well, if you have anyone applying to the recruiter
Yeah.
and they now write that on there, we'll
Yeah.
know where that's come from. And
That's
I think
right, it's all my
that
fault.
might give you the X factor moment for Deedee to take more time. I'm going to move away from CVs because
Okay.
if I follow the process through, you're looking for a role if you're a job seeker, you apply to a role, therefore that's the CV element. And what between us, we've kind of said hobbies and interests can give you a mutual ground to discuss, but showing not just what you've done, what you've really done well and what you're remembered for will help. What about the interview? What is the thing when somebody comes into an interview room with you?
Mm-hmm.
What is the one thing you're looking for from that person?
I'm looking for honesty. I'm looking for enthusiasm for the role and for those two things.
Okay, honesty and enthusiasm in the role. How are you challenging honesty out of the person? Because someone can come in and give you lip service to try and make you think they're honest.
Sure.
How do you identify that real hidden layer if they actually are an honest person? Is there a question you can get out of them?
There's the rather cliched question about, what is your worst habit?
Yeah.
What would you like to improve about how you perform in this kind of role? And what I'm looking for there is somebody who is cognizant enough to know that they might need improvement in, some area, and that they want to be better at what they do.
So there's an element of humility in the person.
Humility and aspiration at the same time.
Okay, and can enthusiasm, let's just assume they shake your hand, they look you in the eye, they're smiling, they haven't engaged. Is that enough to get enthusiasm across to you, or
No.
is there another way to show enthusiasm?
Enthusiasm is demonstrated to me by the things that you mentioned, but also about the job elements that excite them. You've seen the job description, yes. Which elements of it really appeal to you? Why did this advertisement make a difference to you? What made you want to apply?
I've got to say, I've never heard that question asked, and that is a powerful question, Deedee.
Oh.
That is a good question. And I think ultimately all you're illustrating from the person is, one, that they've read it, two, that something's exciting them, therefore it's exciting you, and probably underline all of it, it shows you where their real interests lie. I've never heard it worded that way, and I might even steal that one.
Please do.
And I might ask somebody else that one in the future. I'm going to ask you one final question before we kind of come to an end. But let's move the process on. Somebody's applied to a job with a CV, someone sat in the interview, they've shown honesty and they've shown their enthusiasm. Let's say they've got the job. How do they impress you within the first weeks in that job? What's the best thing they can do to impress you now they're onboarding into the company?
They will understand, well, maybe this comes more with wisdom in a job for some time. Often people want so badly to impress you the first week, and they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
You can say, oh, please ask me all kinds of questions. They don't know enough yet about their surroundings and so forth generally.
Yeah.
To know what questions to ask. So I'm not offended if people don't ask things in the first week. After that, I want a lot of questions.
Okay. So is it fair to say, in a way, you're at a period where you're saying there's no stupid questions other than the ones you don't ask, and by asking you're going to find the answers?
Yes.
Okay, so almost being curious and inquisitive in the role and being honest enough to ask those questions shows that they're the right person for you long term.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
No, I think you've shared some really interesting insights there from the CV. If we consider what's jumping out to you as what you've done great, not just what you've done. The interview, are you honest and enthusiastic, and can you demonstrate it? And when they join you in your firm, are they actually doing what it takes to understand the role? Because you don't know what you don't know, and I absolutely love that phrase. Right, now we're almost at the end of our time, Deedee. I've asked you a lot of questions, but you've got so much to share that we can't put it in one podcast. Are there any final comments that you think are useful to our listeners that can help them with future endeavours?
No matter what kind of career you're currently in, enjoy the journey and appreciate that the journey may take you down different roads at different times. If you think you might enjoy an opportunity that's outside what you do, say yes. Try it out, because everything that you do actually is going to be of value for you somewhere else. And that can be, if you're like me, if you're a journalist and you go from different subjects and you think, well, I don't know anything about that, but I'd love to learn, and that would be very cool. Do it. It can be whether you're a life science person and, want to change disciplines. There may be a great deal of study involved with that and different experiences, but give yourself that opportunity. Don't box yourself in. It's never too late to do something different, and, it's life enhancing.
So in a way, as long as it's within context, regret something you did, don't regret not doing something.
Yes.
If we put it like that. And I'll give you a great example. I think you'll know this. But prior to recruitment, can you remember what I did prior to recruitment, Deedee?
You were a weightlifter.
Almost. I was a professional wrestler. So, who
Yes.
would think a professional wrestler would end up being a recruiter, running the Recruiter Ricky podcast with Deedee Doke? we've seeked opportunities, we've taken them, and we haven't regretted a single thing.
Absolutely. And you're using that skill even now. You know, you have to wrestle with CVs, you wrestle with interesting characters, you know, metaphorically. It will have been useful.
It definitely has. You're right, everything has a value, and I think that's a great take home for everyone. Thank you, Deedee.
Thank you.